All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast. So, small group here. It's just Derrin and I for this one. Maybe we'll see some of the others pop in. It's cool either
Never
way,
know.
but yeah, how's it going, Derrin?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great myself. All right, so we got another fight card to go over here. Seven pretty action-packed fights here. We had a few bangers and quite a few big names making their appearance once again. So some critical fights for many of these robots, and we got a lot of action in this one. So lots to discuss, and even though there's only two of us, I'm sure we'll cover through a lot of it. Uh, yeah, as usual, if you haven't seen the episode yet, there will be spoilers. So if you don't want to hear the results, watch the episode or at least the fights before you watch this. So just warning, as usual. All right, so I don't think there's really much more to talk about. So I'm gonna go. Let's go ahead and talk about the first match.
Yep.
All right, so first match of the episode, we had Beta and Black Dragon. So one of my favorites in there, Black Dragon, currently sitting at a 1-1 record, starting off with a victory over Monsoon, then took a close judge's decision loss to Quantum, taking on Beta, who currently off to a good start, two victories over Kraken and Shatter, and basically brought out their vertical spinner armor, but they talked about this a lot on social media. This was, like I said on Prediction Podcast, this is not the same vertical spinner armor than what we saw when they fought Ribot, Lockjaw, and so on. Basically, they made the armor a lot more shock absorbent, and with the purpose of being able to take hits better from vertical spinners. So they were testing out like it might look the same, but but it's a lot different, at least especially on the interior. So, uh, yeah, it's a pretty good match to test it here against a pretty powerful vert like Black Dragon, and yeah, even with all the upgrades, it kind of didn't go to plan. So, yeah, Darren, you want to talk about the match?
Sure. I'll give it credit. The armor worked more than it worked in the Lockjaw and Ribot fights. It actually held up for longer than I thought it would before inevitably it kind of failed. I think in this match, Speedo was doing pretty well, deflecting the blows of Black Dragon after the first big hit. It self-righted pretty good. Then it was a bit more of a chase. Then they fired the hammer like a couple times, and it just seemed to get weaker and weaker after each swing until it kind of fired one last time, then kind of stopped there. Then it seemed like the entire robot kind of stopped after that. And then Black Dragon got a hit in where they flipped it over, and then they couldn't self-right, and that was the fight. I will say I liked how the editors seemed to make a deliberate here in showing uh, John telling the Black Dragon team that they were done. The other team then acknowledging that. I feel like that was quite deliberate. Just something I noticed.
Yeah, I would kind of agree because a lot of people commented on this in the Facebook group, but they really felt that like in the 2 week break, Battlebots kind of left a lot of us on a bad note with showing what a lot of people thought was really bad sportsmanship from Riptide, and then showed Black Dragon showing pretty good sportsmanship because when John Reed basically mentioned they were done and asked to back off, they backed off. And but talking about this fight right there, you're not gonna hear this a lot, but Black Dragon outdrove John Reed in this one, I think. I think that was the key to Black Dragon winning this fight. Like Gabriel did a great job driving Black Dragon in this one. Managed to land shots where they needed to. Even dodged the hammer several times, which I felt was very impressive. And because I don't think Beta landed a single hammer shot throughout this entire match. So they might have landed one. No, yeah, they did land one on the tires, but they didn't land many shots though. Regardless, is what where I'm going right there. Like, definitely, I think driving was the key to Black Dragon winning this match right there, along with the shots they got. I wonder if it's possible that Black Dragon maybe punctured the CO2 tank or something on that first hit that flipped Beta over. Because I would agree with Derin that I was also noticing the hammer was seeming to fire slower and slower when we got to later into the match until it was non-effective, and that's not the same Beta we saw when they fought Shatter. So something definitely didn't seem right. I'm not sure if it's a hit that Black Dragon got, or if it's like damage they didn't find from Shatter, or something else. But it's unknown to me. But yeah. So definitely, I would say like while because I've also been hearing a lot of criticism on the armor choice of Beta for this one. People are talking about that they should have gone with the wedge like they did in the previous matchups, or John Reed should bring in forks. But like with the config that Beta have, like I think this was the right choice. I think John Reed had the right idea with how to take it here, because basically, if you watch the podcast where we had the Quantum team on, they gave a great explanation on why Beta chose to go with why Beta has a vertical spinner armor like that. Basically, they would rather take hits right on the front there rather than their internals, which is why Gigabyte has a vertical spinner shell the way it's designed. It's the same concept basically. So I think this is a better configuration for vertical spinners and drum spinners. Like, not everyone might agree. I don't know if Derin agrees or not. I'll let you share your
I
stance on it in a moment. But yeah, I think this was the right choice for Beta personally, at least. That's just my opinion, though. Derin, you want to share your stance on that at least?
Yeah, I think this was a. I think the vertical style armor can work, and it did work for a bit in this fight. I think it just needs like a. I think the armor has like a lip at the bottom that kind of goes like an under wedge sort of thing, like an anti wedge. I think that the armor should be straight down to the floor as best as possible. 'Cause then the spinner can actually like get under that lip and hit it up.
So you're kind of
I think if it was
saying
like
kind of like the skirt that Chomp had a couple seasons ago.
yeah, yeah, basically. Or like kind of like Rusty's sides or something.
Oh, I could see that too.
Which
Uh,
is like I remember when they fought Copperhead, they didn't actually get that good of hits until like late in the match. I think Rusty held up for a lot longer than was expected. That fight.
100%. So yeah, you want to share want to share your takes on their next opponents, because both robots sitting at 2-1 right now, and Beta's got Bloodsport, which we'll talk about Bloodsport later on in the episode, and Black Dragon's got Riptide. So
Yeah. Let's see. Beta versus Bloodsport. Ooh. Beta's good against horizontals. That's That's gonna be an interesting one. Vita might be able to have a shot here, especially because of Bloodsport's new above weapon, where all the motors are. That new head. Vita could hit that if they manage to ram Bloodsport into the wall and get their weapon stopped. But that really depends on how the driving is from both robots. For now, I'll say Beta, but it could change again. It really depends. For Black Dragon Riptide, yes, has been quite destructive, but none of their fights have been that long. Like, I think the longest was the Mad Catter fight, and that was only like about 40 seconds, maybe a minute. And Black Dragon is very resilient, so this is going to be more of an endurance test for Riptide than any of their other fights, which might reveal issues that they wouldn't have found out, wouldn't have learned if the fights before had been longer. This is going to be a long fight, I think. It, it's going to be a good slam fight either way. Riptide probably, if they're reliable and keep working, probably might take this, but it really depends. Again, we don't know how they deal with longer fights because they haven't had really a long fight yet. So I'll say Riptide for now, but it could change again. It depends.
yeah, I'm gonna start with Black Dragon and Riptide for myself, because my position on that is gonna be the same as it was last week. I really want Black Dragon to win that one because, like I said already, Black Dragon is one of my favorite robots out there. But sadly, I think this is gonna go in Riptide's favor. Like, like Derin said, I think Black Dragon's big shot at this because I don't think they're gonna be able to outdrive Riptide with those fancy maneuvers that we've seen in previous matchups because of Ethan's driving style. Well, I think their big shot is probably going to be outlasting Riptide, like what Derin said right there. Because, like he said, Riptide, Riptide's probably had not even 2 minutes of box time yet. If I take a guess, I haven't summed up all that yet, but that's my guess right now. But yeah, I think Riptide has the more effective weapon, and I think the reach game is going to really help Riptide here, and I think Riptide wins that one. So. As for Beta and Bloodsport, while I do agree that Beta has a design advantage, I think lots of people are counting out Bloodsport a little, or are kind of underestimating Bloodsport here, because I think this one's gonna be a closer fight than what a lot of people might anticipate. I think Bloodsport's definitely big vulnerability is going to be the head right there, like Derin mentioned, but then what I am curious about though is Bloodsport did confirm on a social media post with me that they do have armor for that head for overhead attackers, whether it was like Sawblaze, Scorpios, or Beta. And I imagine they're gonna use that for that match with Beta. So it's gonna depend on how well will they hold up to all the hammer attacks of Beta. But we'll talk about Bloodsport later on. But Bloodsport's weapon proved to be no joke. So I think that one's gonna really come down to driving, where we got two phenomenal drivers in John Reed and Justin Marple. And I'm gonna say whoever wins the driving game is gonna take that one. So I have Bloodsport on that one, and believe it or not, because I think if it does come down to this, I think Bloodsport can push around Beta with the wedgelets if they have their horizontal spinners slowed down. I think they have the ground game advantage, but regardless, that's gonna be an awesome fight to see, and I can't wait for it. So, let's move
Yeah.
on to fight number two.
I will quickly mention something. I checked Riptide. Their average fight length this season is about a minute. So
Oh,
that's that
average.
compares like
Okay, so
KO. They've got about an average of like a minute long.
I see. So they're probably near the 3 minute range then, and for box time, but still that's short. And
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and
Moving
move on
on.
to fight number two.
Oh boy.
All right, this one, Cobalt and
Rematch.
Overhaul. So, youch, this was a rough matchup for Overhaul, but
Who
both,
asked for this rematch?
yeah, yeah. Now, yeah, this is like a rematch that not a lot of people would expect we got because these two did fight in 2016. It's just it's a different Cobalt design than what we
Yeah.
got here. It's the carbide version of Cobalt rather than
Yep.
the tungsten version of Cobalt. So, yeah, and both robots we got to see some new configurations from both robots. Cobalt came in with piano key forks for this one, and Overhaul coming in with extra long forks to kind of keep Cobalt away and try to win the push game. And this one came down to who was going to win the ground game, and it definitely looked like Cobalt was winning majority of those. So, and that I will give Overhaul a lot of credit, though. I think they lasted a lot longer than what I would have expected in this one. And for the fact that this was such a rough matchup for them, in my opinion, yeah. So, Darren, you want to talk about this match?
Yeah. I don't think anyone expected Overhaul to win, and that's what happened. Overhaul didn't win at all. Um, and I just quickly want to say, people who are saying, I think people are gonna have been saying, I've been seeing a lot of comments saying, questioning why Charles freed Cobalt from the wall. According to the people on Cobalt, Cobalt would have just has the ability to vibrate, would have vibrated off the wall if Charles hadn't done anything. So he didn't free him. He didn't accidentally throw the fight there. So I just want
I
to
did
get
not
that out
know
of the
that.
way
That's an
quickly.
interesting fact.
Yeah, that would have vibrated off. This fight was, I'll give Overhaul credit. It lasted quite a lot longer than I think anyone expected. It like actually was able to hang in there for a good couple minutes, longer than I thought people thought this fight would go. I thought it would be over within like 20 seconds. But still, that bot is pretty damn resilient for what it is. Eventually, it did just die and got flipped over. But it was surprisingly difficult for Cobalt. I think is the best way I can describe this fight. It was good. Cobalt's got a couple good hits in. And I also like the dually tires on Overhaul. That was just I just like that. Also, Charles saying suboptimal was just really funny to me. It's just
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
it's like it's a video game or something.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just love it. Yeah, pretty good fight. Surprisingly, I guess back and forth is the best fight way I could. Not really back and forth. Surprisingly tough for Cobalt. That's all I'll say. Fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, yeah, like I said, I was surprised how long of a fight this was, but I think there's a lot more to it than that because it sounded like Dave was having a little bit of a hard time driving and during parts of it. I'm guessing it's just with the new fork adjustments, and so I'm guessing it made Cobalt a little bit harder to drive or something. But yeah, I'm not sure if Overhaul's lifter might not have been working in that match, if Cobalt damaged it or something like that, because I felt Overhaul had a few opportunities for a lift, and then other times did not. You had something you want to say, Derin, about that?
According to the team, the lifter did die, and it went out because the power leads to that ESC got boinked.
That's fair enough.
It was
Yeah, because the other thing I was gonna say then was maybe it was just Overhaul was gonna just use the lifter in the down position for the entire fight and just push Cobalt into hazards, but that would make sense too, who and would result in Plan B being that. So, but yeah, major credit to Overhaul for lasting as long as it did. Got a few decent control moments in, but kind of as I think both of us expected, this one didn't go their way. So, yeah, Cobalt's now sitting at 2-1 in a very good spot in my opinion right now, with two pretty good victories and a very good loss. And then Overhaul currently sitting at 1-2, probably needs to win their next, definitely needs to win their next match. And yeah, so what are your takes on their next opponents? Cobalt's taking on Lucky, Overhaul's taking on Shreddit Bro, which those two are fighting each other in the next episode. So
yeah. Let's see. Cobalt Lucky. As long as Cobalt doesn't fuck this up, I think they have this fight pretty much in the bag. As long as they like ground and drive strategically and keep their forks pointed at Lucky, I think they'll win this. I'm hoping. Overhaul versus Shreddit Bro really depends on how well Shreddit Bro works. If it's working really good and they got all the problems sorted with it, like the weapon works and the drive's working, I think Shreddit Bro will actually take this. But it entirely depends if they're working. If they aren't, Overhaul will probably just mop the floor with them and just suplex them over and over again, and Overhaul will somehow be 2-2, I think.
yeah,
It'll be interesting. Yeah, that's my takes.
yeah, and so I'm gonna start with Overhaul and Shreddit Bro. Just gonna go in reverse order each time, I guess. So with that one, Shreddit Bro has been full of gremlins so far in their first two matchups, and we're gonna see we get a big test in the next episode whether whether they were able to work through lots of those. So as of right now, my pick is Overhaul right now. I think Overhaul definitely has the durability to take a couple of shots from Shredder Bro's spinner and maybe dig into that weapon with their beak right there and possibly disable it. Because I think that could be a reasonable strategy that Overhaul might go for, at least in this one, and try to control the fight that way. But if Shredded Bro is not at 100%, it's just gonna be Overhaul versus Chomp all over again, basically. Or the beginning of Black Dragon and Overhaul from last season all over again. So Cobalt and Lucky, I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that's gonna be a really good fight. So, uh, Lucky has definitely been on a reign of terror of their own with two pretty statement victories so far, and then they got their next matchup with Shreddit Bro coming. So, as of right now, yes, my pick is also going to be Cobalt for that one. I think Lucky's going to have the start of that matchup, but then I think as soon as Cobalt starts getting underneath Lucky, I think that's going to be the end of Lucky from there. And I think that's going to be the big difference in this match. But regardless, I'm looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be a banger fight. So, uh, yeah. Anything else? Or should we move on to the fight number 3?
Move on.
Yeah, I just had to go
Uh,
with this fight image. So, all right, Ominous and Switchback. So, this one was I think there was a lot more action in this one than what I personally was expecting we were going to get to see going into this one when I saw this fight was happening in this episode. But I thought this one showed a lot of promise. So, basically I mentioned in my prediction podcast with this one and the next two matchups, I think both robots were in need of not just a victory, but just need to show some quality at least. And I'd say we kind of got that at least with this one. But yeah, Darren, you want to talk about this one then?
okay. When I did predictions, I do predictions on this Coastal on the Brain Goat channel. I make predictions, and I'm predictions anyway. I went check 1, 2, 6-1 with my predictions. This was the one fight I got wrong.
Yeah, better
And
than me. I went 3-4 this week.
oof, dang, yeah. And this is the one fight I got wrong because I they here's the thing, Ominous was winning until they just like weren't. Like they had this fight until like that one hit like Ben. So the fight starts, they spin up the speed. Ominous gets a nice hit on the front after a bit of fiddling around. Uh, they bend that weird anti-horizontal plow into the weapon, and from there, Switchback no longer has a weapon. Ominous can basically just take pot shots whenever the heck they want. And I'm thinking during this, I'm like, Ominous has this in the bag. They can't lose because their Switchback's weapon is disabled. They're just gonna hit it over and over. And then they hit the front, they rip the wedge off, and then somehow do like a backflip. I think I have to take a look at the replay again because I really have to see that replay again because they like do like a backflip despite hitting it like this, which it shouldn't make them do like a front flip, but they do a backflip. End up upside down. They flip switchback over, whose weapon now works again because it's no longer jammed. Ominous can't self-right. And I think the reason was because like a motor for the hydraulic pump shifted in the chassis, and so it couldn't get the Streamec to start to work. I just remember I was watching this, and I just was like, "Oh come on, you were winning, and then you just." Ugh. I'll be honest, Switchback got lucky. I'm just gonna say it. I think they got really lucky here. Yeah, that's just stings, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. No, that's BattleBots.
Yeah. Yeah, there are lots of those showings where like it's going so well until it's not. But first thing I'm gonna say right here, Ominous, whatever you did to fix that weapon worked. We have not seen that weapon hit that hard all season. Man, that thing like it absolute punches right there. Or they were delivering to Switchback right there, sending it flying. And like, where was this Ominous the previous two fights? Like, that was awesome to see. But Yeah, because we saw them doing all sorts of damage to Switchback, but then yeah, as Derin said, it was going so well until it wasn't, because the last weapon on weapon hit they got flipped over in the process, and sadly their self rider was not working. I'll let Derin explain what went wrong there, but yeah, I think we really got to see some of the potential that Ominous has, and this is a good time to be showing it, even though they are currently sitting at 1-2. I would say this was a pretty quality loss for Ominous, and I think they still have a shot at making bracket if they can win their next fight with Shatter, which is going to be a tough one. And for Switchback, even though Switchback is 2-1, I still consider Switchback to kind of be on the ropes for whether they make postseason or not right now, because I still think we haven't seen Switchback at 100% yet, because it sounds like they were struggling with the weapon spin up at the beginning of the match, and yeah, I think we need to see at least a quality performance, whether it's a win or loss from the. I think we either need to see a win in their next match or see a quality showing from in that next match with Hijinks right there. Like, yeah, because I think like definitely the record is solid for Switchback. I think it's in a good place. Like I think they could still make bracket even if they lose their next matchup. I just don't think it'll be a high seed in my opinion right there, because I feel the quality of matchups just hasn't been there for Switchback at least yet. But a win's a win regardless, like the Switchback team said in that post-fight interview. And I hope we'll get to see more from that robot in their next matchup, because I do think this new version of Switchback has a lot of potential to do well. But Derin, you want to share what happened to the Self Rider in that matchup, since you had
I
knowledge
think I
on that?
said I think I said it during my recap that a motor shifted for the hydraulic pump that runs the self rider when
Yeah.
they couldn't move, which sucks.
Yeah, sadness. But you want to share your opinions on their next opponents? Ominous has Shatter and Switchback has Hijinks.
All right, ominous and shatter. Ooh, this is gonna be a. I mean, it really depends on how good like ominous's armor is, and also how I'm thinking. This is gonna be a really fun fight to watch because they're both Omni Drive slash Makeda Drive robots and can just strafe everywhere.
And that's probably why they set up this
So
matchup.
this is gonna be fun to watch, I think. Um, yeah. Uh, Iron's been having like a really rough season. Like they're currently 0-3, which at this point I really think the best they can do is just play spoiler. So I think Adam Wrigley, the robot's gonna be. They say that a bot with nothing to lose is probably the most dangerous, and I I don't know. Like this is a tough. I really don't not sure. This is like a really tough one. It really depends on how well driven either of these robots are. It really depends on who lands that hit first and how good that first hit's gonna be. This is gonna be like a really good driving fight, I think, which might be surprising considering they're both Omni Drive, but I think it's gonna be a really, really good driving fight to watch. I'm gonna say Shatter because they're more experienced, but it really could go either way, and that's what's really cool here. X Switchback versus Hijinks is a lot easier to call. Hijinks just their spin up time is absolutely atrocious, and Switchback has at least speed, so I expect them to just box rush across the box and make the Hijinks before it really gets up to speed. And yes, I know Hijinks has the tail, but I think they'll be able to maneuver around it and stop the blade from spinning up. And even if it does spin up, they do have a at least decent anti-horizontal plow, presumably. And so they'll probably be able to deflect a couple hits and survive the hits before they get a hit on her hijinks and probably disable the weapon and just then it'll just be that for like I don't know. I'm not sure if this will be like a judge's decision or a KO. I'm gonna say Switchback will probably win this one. I'm not too sure though. Actually, I'm pretty sure actually. Hijinks. I mean, Switchback will probably win. My take.
That's fair. So I'm gonna start with Ominous and Shatter. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that's gonna be another good fight because we get two Omni Wheel driven robots, two great drivers behind the wheel, and two very powerful weapons right there. But then, like Darren said, this has just been a roller coaster of a season for Shatter. Yeah, three losses so far in the season with Huge, Beta, and Horizon, and I'd say some pretty quality performances. Like definitely Adam Rayleigh is gonna be absolutely out for blood because Shatter's definitely not making bracket if they don't win this fight. They might have a chance at making bracket if they can win this fight. I think Shatter needs not just a victory, but they need a quality victory for this one too. And because I think that's gonna be because like I'd say Shatter has had some quality losses so far, or because they did show some potential in Beta and Huge, and then had a very high quality loss in the Horizon matches. That was a very close decision and lots of action from both robots there. So and yeah. My pick is I'm gonna agree with Darren. I'm gonna predict Shatter on this one, but after seeing what we saw from Ominous in this one, Shatter better watch out for Ominous as well, because Ominous proved that they could definitely deliver damaging shots just like Shatter can after seeing this match right there. And Shatter's going to need to be really careful about that drum spinner. So I would probably give Shatter the edge when it comes to driving, and I'd probably say they have the more effective weapon by a little bit. But then I'd say Ominous has speed and maneuverability, at least, between these two. And yeah, I think I'm gonna lean towards Shatter on this one barely, but like this, I'm not gonna count on Ominous one bit after seeing this kind of a performance. But regardless, I think this is gonna be a must-win fight for both robots, and I bet we're gonna get a good showing. So Switchback and Hijinks, I'm going to go Hijinks on that one. So I think if this one ends in a KO, I I think Hijinks will either win this by KO, or I think Switchback will win this one by judge's decision. What this one's going to come down to is how well has Hijinks ironed out lots of the problems they've been having their previous few fights so far. Yeah, because like the weapon hasn't been working properly in most of their matchups so far. Some of them, their drive has been failing them a bit. I think if Hijinks works as well as we've seen it work in seasons past, I think Hijinks is gonna smoke Switchback and win that one by KO. Like, but then if Hijinks starts having weapon problems, almost like what we've been seeing in the past, I think Switchback's gonna control the brunt of the match, and win it by a judge's decision. But yeah, we've seen a lot of these issues from Hijinks in the past, and we've seen them really come through late in the qualifiers, and that's kind of what I'm going for with this one, at least, and why I think I'm going to predict Hijinks to win this fight. But yeah, that's going to be another interesting showdown, and I think both these fights are must wins on all four robots. So, all right, anything else, or should we move on to the next one, the Midway Major?
Move on.
Midway Major. All right, this one.
Ooh.
Oh man, this one was awesome. To see, I don't care what people say, how sad ahead of an ending it was. This one was a beaut. So Glitch and Triton right off the bat. So both robots currently sitting at 0-2 right now, both in desperate need of a victory. Right there, and
Yep.
this fight did not go the way I expected it to, one bit. But I'm glad we got to see a good showing, especially like Triton, we got to see a pretty good showing in that one, and Glitch, we got to see the showcase of the power, but then sadly, internally, stuff went wrong for Glitch. So, uh, yeah, Darren, you want to share your opinions on this one?
Yeah, hold on, just let me.
This is a
Oh,
funny match to
okay.
see Will Bales get to commentate too. So.
Yeah. First of all, this needs to. Yes! Finally, Triton got a win. Yes, 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 yes. Ah. I love Triton. I don't care it's a glass cannon. I fucking love glass cannons, and I love the just big weapon equal because I have big weapon on my thing. I love just big stupid weapons, and I just love Triton so much because of the big dumb weapon. I got a win finally. I predicted they'd get a win because Glitch has just been having a lot of issues this year. Like, dang, I know that the sophomore slump is a thing, and no one really epitomizes it currently right any better right now than Glitch. Like, to go from like 7-2 because a forfeit counts as a loss. I'm counting that as a loss, so they're 7-2 in my opinion. To go from 7-2 to currently 0-3. Just ouch. Like dang. Now for the fight itself. Um so Triton, they both spin up, and then Triton gets a hit on the like the side. And according to the team, what that is it cleaved actually into the frame and caught a receiver battery, which caused some of the smoke, the initial smoke at least. It also pinched in one of the wheels, and which caused basically they lost drive on one side with that first hit. So then they were kind of spinning around on smoking. Triton spins back up to speed, and then they slam in again. Triton does like a pirouette in like the sky. It lands back on its. It lands. The weapon then stops because the belt's all tangled up. But Triton was still working, which is great. So was Glitch, kind of. They were kind of crabbing slightly, but they were still moving. So then Triton carefully maneuvers itself around the back using its dead weapon bars to try and push him into the wall, which succeed pretty well. And then Triton gets the brilliant idea, the amazing idea, which I think was running through their heads is my weapon. I can't spin it up anymore, but I can still use it as like a battering ram. I'm going to jam it into the back of their weapon, which is a very clever idea because then all of that energy in Glitch's weapon hits the. It's going like it's spinning this way, right? And here's like the frame, spinning this way. Bar comes in, weapon egg beater hits the bar of Triton, which then causes all the energy to go from Glitch's weapon into its own frame, and that's what basically kills the entire robot, and also somehow causes Triton to do another backflip in the air, which I don't know how hitting down causes it to go up, but it's Battlebots for you, inventing new physics. That causes the robot to then also causes Glitch to flip over and I think catch fire again, and uh, that's the fight. Triton still works after all this, and gets its first win by KO, and Glitch falls to 0-3. With 3 straight KO losses. And done. You can.
Absolutely. So yeah, my takes on this, similar to Ominous. I don't know what Triton did, but whatever they did to improve the durability of that frame, ever since the Copperhead fight, sure did work on this one. Cause man, did Triton get some airtime on those couple of shots that Glitch managed to get on it with their egg beater. And even though the belts tangled up Triton's spinner after I think it was the second shot that Glitch got on it, it still worked very well in this one. And I give Brad so much credit for how well he drove at least the second half of that match, because I'm not certain on how well Triton would have been able to survive another huge hit like those first few. And the fact that he was able to push Glitch right into the wall and lots of that inertia causing Glitch to flip over like that. Because, yeah. Basically, as for Glitch, at least, other than like the internal issue, and their only real issue so far has just been that they just can't do a lot while upside down. Because it sounds like they in the test box they've been able to drive upside down just fine. It's
Wow.
just the arena floor. They're not able to get a lot of traction on that. Like the drive has been working great, the weapon has been working great too, and just sadly, not all of it's coming together. And Darren, you got something you want to say?
The team. Glitch can drive upside down, but the reason it hasn't are as follows. In Riptide, drive wheels just weren't powered because the encoder was unplugged. In the Lockjaw fight, they had it ground the armor clearance well enough, and were also up against the wall, so they could only drive upside down backwards. It took them into the wall more. And in Triton, one of the drive wheels was unpowered, so they couldn't really drive upside down because only one wheel was working. So Glitch can, if everything's perfect, drive upside down normally pretty fine. And if you're gonna wonder why don't they put a self-righting arm on it, according to the team, again, it's very wide and the middle of the frame is recessed, so putting a self-righting arm is difficult, and also weight, and
Yep.
it's also just not worth the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Glitch did confirm on Discord that next season it sounds like they're not coming with Omni wheels, unfortunately. But yeah, so hopefully we'll get to see a new and improved Glitch for hopefully a third season of it, because that thing has a nasty amount of power to it. And I think it's got potential to go on a deep run and potentially take home the giant nut for sure. But yeah, sadly, just hasn't been able to showcase it so far this season. But yeah, I don't think there's really much more to talk about here that we already covered, so let's talk about their next matchups. Glitch in a really must-win situation with that next fight with Valkyrie, and then Triton, kind of in a I would say, a must-win situation themselves with that next fight with Horizon. I'd say both these matchups, all four of these robots are in must-win situations. So, what are your thoughts on those matchups, Darren?
Glitch versus Valkyrie. Ooh. This really depends on whether Glitch can get itself repaired in time. It probably will. I just I'm thinking this is a. I think Glitch might be able to take this one because Valkyrie. I mean, I don't know what Valkyrie can really do to Glitch other than get around to the side and try and snipe those wheels, which they might be able to do. But I think Glitch might actually take this one because they might, if assuming everything works and they don't get stuck upside down again. I think they'll probably be able to take it based on the fact that I think their just weapon is just more effective against Valkyrie than Valkyrie's is against them. Because they're all just Glitch is all slopes, so normally undercutters probably wouldn't really be able to do anything to them. I think Glitch might actually take this one. Is it enough for them to get into the tournament?
We'll find out.
Maybe. Yeah. Triton versus Horizon. Oh. Hmm. I think. Hmm. I'm trying to think like how the geometry works. I think Triton might probably take this base because their weapon is just has a bigger. I think base. What I'm thinking is Triton's weapon can probably hit like the weapons of uh Horizon before the weapons of Horizon can like hit Triton's wheels or back. As long as Triton stays face towards them, I think they'll think Triton will win because they have like the more powerful weapon. So I think Triton will take that one. But I mean, Horizon might be able to pull off some fancy dance moves and get around to like the side and snipe Triton's wheels. So Triton, I think will win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Horizon can pull off a cool upset. Upset.
Another upset.
Yeah.
All right, so as for Glitch and Valkyrie, like I want to see a repeat of a couple seasons ago. Tracer gets flipped by Ribots in their undercutter form. Then they
Hmm.
proceed to get flipped by Hijinks' horizontal spinner in their next matchup. It'd be
Hmm.
so funny to see Valkyrie flip Glitch over and put it on its head right there. But although I think odds are my pick is actually, even though I really want to see Valkyrie manage to get that, just because I think it'd be funny. So, but my pick is gonna be Glitch for this one because I think Glitch does have a major design advantage for this one because I worry about the structure of Valkyrie's weapon for this one, especially after watching that fight with Malice right there, because we saw Malice like behead Valkyrie basically, They broke that weapon sprocket, causing the weapon to completely separate from the robot, similar to what we saw from Hypershock and Valkyrie last season. But and Glitch probably hits harder than both those robots who managed to accomplish that. So that's my big worry for Valkyrie in that one, and why I have Glitch on top in that one. But this is a must-win situation for both robots, and I'm not sure if Glitch did win this one, who I would accept over the other. I'd probably accept Glitch if I could only accept one of them, because Glitch has shown some potential, like in that those fights with Lockjaw and Triton here, managing to showcase the power of that Egg Beater right there. I think they've had some more quality performances, but regardless, I think this is a must-win situation, and Glitch for sure is probably not going to make bracket. Glitch for sure won't make bracket if they lose this match. They might have a shot if at 1-3 if they can get this win over Valkyrie and get a quality victory too. I think Valkyrie's in if they win this matchup. If they lose, I probably lean more towards that they probably don't make brackets. But we'll find out. Triton and Horizon. I think this one is pretty much like what Alex Price said when she appeared on the podcast to talk with us about about Horizon's recent match with Shatter. So she commented on how both those robots are kind of glass cannons, basically. Both of them have a lot of really vulnerable spots on their robot that the others can take advantage of. And I think whoever lands those big shots first is going to be the one to come out on top. And that is why I am also going to be picking Triton for this one. I think Triton has a better shot at delivering those big blows, those and hitting those weak spots right there, but and also the other reason being, I still don't think we've seen the full potential of Triton yet. I still think that weapon hasn't been hitting at full power than what we've seen from like Deep Six in the past. Like I'm not sure if it's just weapon spin up issues or teething problems or something else. I just don't think we've seen Triton working at 100% as for that weapon so far. So yeah, that'll be it from me
Yeah.
for this one. Should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Here we go, and big rip to my big take on this one, because I did predict Starchild to win this fight. So, yeah, I look
Poor.
so silly
Oh.
now after that. But
Yeah.
yeah, next matchup, another one that features a must-win fight for both robots. Gigabyte and Starchild both sitting at 0-2 for this one, and both in desperate need of a victory. So
Yep.
yeah, Gigabyte came in with some attachments to help them get some better bite on Starchild's wheels right there, and then Starchild's objective was basically try to hit the top of Gigabyte with the spinner, which is where Gigabyte's probably most exposed of the areas that Starchild can actually hit. So yeah, I I think this was first judge's decision of the episode if I remember right. So uh yeah, you want to talk about this matchup?
Yeah. Sure. Right. This was just Gigabyte punching. This is just. I don't think. I'm trying to figure out how to best to phrase this. This was just Gigabyte punching something for 3 minutes. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think Starchild was ever really on top. I don't think they ever. I don't think they even caused much damage aside from the teeth of Gigabyte's special configuration flying off, which wasn't even really something Starchild's doing. Watching Gigabyte uh, hit Starchild's wheels and actually cut into the Tegris, which is pretty impressive because it's Tegris, and apparently Tegris is a good material to use against horizontals. I will say again, also this fight did show how much better the new drivers of Gigabyte have gotten at driving Gigabyte because they weren't really hitting the walls as much. They were a lot more controlled. They were being a bit more aggressive and try and hit the wheels and aim at Starchild in general, which was good. Um, yeah, this is just. I mean, Starchild I think lost its weapon early to like a stuck chain or something, and then it was just. I don't think. I really don't know how that. What the heck Starchild was supposed to do. I really don't. Starchild, I think, has got kind of shafted this season by their fight schedule because they've been fighting a bunch of just really awkward opponents instead of like meta designs, which is what Starchild is good at fighting. It's fighting like big robots, which I feel like what the producers have tried to do is get ahead of the curve because I bet you that when they're thinking, they're like, the fan base would love to see like big robot fight big robot because they're always clamoring about that kind of thing. Like, because I think in the first, I remember like people were clamoring for like a huge versus mammoth before they fought in 2020. Then they had it happen in 2020 after 2019. So I feel like that's kind of partially where part of Starchild's schedule comes in. They want to fight all the big robots because they think the community wants that. And all, but it's just been unfortunate for Starchild because I think this robot has a lot of potential. But it just needs to fight like more of the meta, and I think then it would show its true colors. But yeah, Starchild looked to be in very rough shape at the end of this, and Gigabyte at least gets a win. So yay! You.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was very impressed with Gigabyte on this one. Combination that yeah, we really got to see that weapon real I we got to see the weapon work a lot better than what we saw in their previous few fights. I think it probably had a lot more. It seemed to have a lot more bite to it than what we've seen in their previous few fights. And I did not think they were gonna get through those Tigris wheels as easily as they did in that one. That was pretty much Starchild's strategy. Use the wheels like armor to take the shots from Gigabyte and leave them vulnerable to hits over the top. So, but Brandon mentioned that driving issues were just all over the place in this one. And like definitely was one of the trickier opponents for Starchild in this one. And it sounds yeah, because Brandon said in their post fight report they posted on Facebook that he was having trouble controlling the robot throughout the match basically, and like Derin said, had an issue with the weapon chain that caused them to lose the spinner very early on, and so pretty much from there, all they could really do was basically just keep taking the wheels into the weapon, try to drive the robot into the corner, try to drive it into the walls, basically. Hope the Gigabyte either takes itself out or flips itself over to where it can't self right, maybe. But yeah, so not a lot Starchild really could have done here. Yeah, definitely definitely driving does seem to be improving a lot for the new drivers of Gigabyte from what we saw in the free shipping fight. Uh, Definitely was still a little shaky at times because we did see them take quite a few hits from the walls, but yeah, they did a very good job overall, and I think like definitely this was a good showcase of not just the power but the durability of Gigabyte for this season. Just the fact that it was able to go the full 3 minutes and the weapon was working the full 3 minutes, so very good work from Gigabyte and a very good first victory, even if it is against a robot that's currently winless right now. But yeah, I still consider Gigabyte to be in a must-win situation for their next opponent, and we'll talk about that next. Gigabyte has they win if they're in if they win this matchup for the bracket. They have Endgame for their fourth fight, and then
Yeah.
Starchild and an even more or in a deeper hole right now. And but I think they could possibly get into the bracket if they win this next matchup with Huge. And yeah, Darren, you want to share your opinions on those two matchups?
Gigabyte versus Endgame. Well, it was nice knowing you, Gigabyte. Well, actually, I mean, Gigabyte probably is gonna lose. Endgame's probably gonna win because they have wedges and like big anti-horizontal wedgelet thingies. So they'll probably win. I mean, I suppose Gigabyte will put up quite a fight, and who knows, it might last to judges. But I really, unless Gigabyte can get like a, unless Endgame decides to bury itself in the kill slots again, which I don't think will happen because they would probably be using anti-horizontal wedgelets instead of like the forks, so that won't happen. Unless Gigabyte can like get a good shot at, like the side, Endgame is just gonna in this fight. Really, no questions asked. So kind of sucks. Starchild versus Huge. Hmm. Actually, I was gonna say like quick and easy victory for Huge, but actually, Starchild could, if it gets a good shot, probably possibly hit like the top panels of Huge and maybe do something. As that requires getting close to the weapon of Huge, which will probably hit them first. I gotta think of like the geometries of these robots. Huge will probably win, but Starchild might put up quite a fight though. So it might be don't like what's the term? Bet Starchild out or something. Don't count
Don't count
Starchild
out
out just yet.
Starchild.
That's it. They might actually be able to pull off an upset here, but for now I'll say Huge, but keep Starchild's possible unique. Like I remember because Chomp, right back when Huge first fought Chomp way back in 2018. Chomp, before its hammer got completely messed up, landed a good couple shots on the top panels of Huge and managed, I think, do quite a bit of damage. So that we might see something similar here. Don't know. I'll say Huge for now, though.
Yeah, as for
Oh
my
boy.
takes on it, and hey, Mantine, uh,
Yeah.
for Gigabyte and Endgame, uh, sorry, Gigabyte, but I think Endgame is gonna deliver a whooping in this one. I hope they're gonna be ready for a box rush because I think a box rush is probably coming, and for this one, just to try to slow down Gigabyte's spinner and then land shots on the more vulnerable areas on Gigabyte, the underside primarily. But I think Endgame is going to be on Gigabyte right from the start on this matchup. But I'm not going to count out Gigabyte yet exactly, because Gigabyte did look pretty solid in this one regarding their weapon power and their durability. I think they could definitely tank quite a few shots from Endgame, but it's not going to be an easy one, at least. I have to lean towards Endgame on that one. And then Starchild and Huge. I think Starchild's big shot of winning this fight is going to be disabling the weapon of Huge, because I think that's the one kind of big advantage that Starchild possibly has with swinging that arm right there compared to Huge's weapon. And where I'm kind of going for is kind of like the Bombshell Tombstone strategy from 2016, where Bombshell is trying to aim for the weapon chain of Huge, or weapon chain of Tombstone, like several other teams have done in the future. But with the fact that Huge's weapon chains on both sides of their weapon makes me think that I don't think it's gonna happen, and I think Starchild's probably gonna take hits on that frame. In my opinion, I think Huge is like the worst possible opponent for Starchild, and just because Starchild has so many big, really exposed spots on that frame right there. It sounds like Huge built up the frame pretty well for this year compared to previous seasons, making me think Starchild could also go for lots of the frame bits like what Derin was saying, but I'm pretty confident Huge can take a couple of hits from Starchild's spinner, but I gotta say, just how vulnerable I feel that base of Starchild is why I'm going to pick Huge for this one. Mantine, you want to share any opinions on that, if you want?
Uh, this fight's gonna make me sad. That is all.
Which one, or both?
Dude, I the Gigabyte team they did better at driving in the Star Child fight, but it's not like they were ever under any threat of getting like rushed by Star Child. It's not exactly the fastest robot in the world. All they had to do was kind of meander around it, and they managed that decently well. But in game's fast and it hits hard, and it's gonna. I don't think they have the driving abilities to really get around in game. And Gigabyte's going to go 1-3 and probably miss bracket. So maybe they can do something in champions, though. I don't know. We'll see.
For sure. Yeah, I hope regardless of whether Gigabyte or Starchild make or miss the bracket, I hope we get to see a bunch of good action from them, whether it's Golden Bolt tournament or exhibition matchups, because Derin said this about Starchild, and then Mantine said this about Gigabyte. But I think both robots definitely have potential to do stuff in either of those things, and hopefully we'll get to see it in lots of these, and some of these outside stuff. So, all right, shall we move on to the next one?
Question: should we let Mantine do a brief rundown of what he thinks of the? Actually, never mind. I was gonna say let him predict the other fights we already went over, but never mind. It'd take too long.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, this one. So the first round 4 matchups of the
Yep.
at least the televised qualifiers, we got Jackpot and Captain Shredderator. So Jackpot sitting at one, both robots sitting at 1-2 right now. Jackpot recently got a victory over Ribot, and they're with Mantine. Captain Shredderator recently they got a victory over Hijinks, but then 2 brutal losses to Quantum, and then most recently Riptide. We don't speak too much about that fight, but yeah, both robots in a must-win situation, similar to the previous few matchups, and we got a pretty good 3-minute brawl from these two, in my opinion. I give a lot of props to both, to especially Captain Shredderator for this one, just on the fact that they apparently only had 24 hours to repair their robot after the beating they took in their last match, and then Jackpot took a lot of damage themselves from the Ribot fight. So lots to work with, and definitely a key fight for both robots. Darren, you want to share your thoughts on it?
This was just this was actually a pretty good fight for the two of them. Captain Shredderator admittedly never really got away from the walls. I think I'm not sure why they were having issues there, but they they kept working for the entire fight. Their drive worked at the end. Their weapon also worked at the end. Uh, Jackpot's its weapon seemed to be kind of really weak in this fight. Like really weak for some reason. I assume the motors are still damaged from the another fight, but uh, they kept Jackpot kept Captain Shredder like in that area near the corner. Them escape from it, or try their best not to let them escape from it, which was a good tactic on their part. Uh, and then Captain Shredder lost a tooth, but still he kept spinning and kept attacking, so that's pretty cool. I also think they lost teeth as well somewhere along the line, like more than just that tooth. But they hung in there. They made it to the end. Lost a judge decision, but they made it. Uh, yeah, pretty good fight overall, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I think this was a lot better of a fight than what I thought we were gonna see in this one, because basically this was a lot more back and forth than what I was personally expecting. Because I was expecting that the repair job was gonna be a bit costly for Captain Shredderator in this one, and they proved me wrong in this one for the most part. Even though they didn't win that fight, they still proved me wrong. So, because they were still landing some the huge hits that we know them so well for. But I will agree that driving definitely seemed a bit shaky at the beginning of the showdown. I It looked like the center driving pod, or whatever you call that thing, and the lights on top. It looked like they were spinning a bit while they were in the corner, making me wonder if maybe something in there was damaged. But whatever it was, whether it was just issues with them behind the wheel, or if it was some issue with the robot, it was fixed later on, because they were driving quite fine and were able to get the weapon spun up and land some huge hits. But then Jackpot was able to take those hits really well with that Heartbreaker configuration. Eventually took a tooth off Captain Shredderator and won what was, in my opinion, a pretty convincing judge's decision, but was a good loss for Captain Shredderator regardless. Though I felt this was a quality performance from them. Out of their 3 losses this season, I think this was the most quality of those 3 defeats. And yeah, sadly, I don't think Captain Shredder is going to make brackets. That's actually the next topic, since we don't know their next opponents. What are our thoughts on them making the top 32? Since these are their 4th round matchups, and so we don't know who their next opponent is. But you want to share your thoughts on that, Darren? I don't think there's really much more to talk
Um,
about.
Captain Shredderator, I don't think they're making the top 32. Oh, they only have a single win, and it wasn't really that impressive, and they lost in pretty brutal fashion. So yeah, I don't think they're making it. I think Jackpot I just barely squeeze in. Their wins haven't been awe-inspiring, I guess, for lack of a better term. And what how have they lost? They lost to Ghost, and they also lost against. Who else did they lose against?
Scorpios and who was the other one? Rotator.
Ah, right, yeah. They might squeeze in at the very bottom, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make it in.
Yeah, so my opinions, I agree with Captain Shredderator. Sadly, I don't think they're gonna make bracket this year. Hopefully, we'll get to see them in Golden Bolt or Exhibition and stuff, and hopefully, we'll get to see some pretty solid performances from that robot. And then as for Jackpot, I personally think Jackpot will get accepted into the top 32. The strength of schedule has definitely been there for Jackpot. I'd say I'd say all of their last three fights have been pretty quality performances. I do think they probably will be one of the lower ranked robots, maybe somewhere in the 20s. He's just kind of my guess for where I think they'll be placed, but yeah, I'm pretty confident they'll make brackets, but we'll see here for sure. Yeah, so I don't think there's really much more to talk about. Should we move on to the main event?
Yep, here we go.
All right, so we don't get to see too many horizontal spinner on horizontal spinner battles, and we got one right here. Two pretty
Yep.
technical horizontal spinners with this one, with a lot of added features to it. We got Bloodsport and Rotator. So Rotator, I think lots of us kind of expected Rotator was going to come in with the horizontal spinner on one side, and then the plow on the other side to be able to take shots from the opposing robot's horizontal spinner. Bloodsport coming in, not how I expected. I expected Bloodsport to go with a shorter blade for this one, for the purpose of like making sure for the purpose of it being easier for the robot to be stable. That's not what they went with this one. They went with their longest bar for this one on for reach purposes. Is because they felt they could outreach Rotator's horizontal spinner with that, and
Yeah.
that worked out well for them because they came out on top in this one. So, you want to share your thoughts on it, Darren?
Yeah, sure. This is a pretty good fight. Bloodsport comes out. They get a really, really good hit on the side of Rotator, damages the side of drive, and also kind of dislodges the armor immediately. Remember, then they get a couple more hits in before getting kind of launched into the X screws, and then kind of get stuck there for about 30 seconds. It's fun, and Rotator then can't capitalize on it for a reason. I think of something getting stuck. I don't remember. Then Bloodsport gets off, spins up their weapon again, hits Rotator a couple more times in the side and the front. And at some point their wedgelets came off, but that's fine for them. And then at some point, I think it's in the video. Bloodsport gets a couple more hits in, and then that kills Rotator, and they win. But not after ripping their own face off, which is kind of funny, seeing their little head kind of go bloop and fall off and just flopped away. Woo. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty good destructive fight.
for sure. This fight did not go how I expected it to, but nothing against Victor Soto, but I think he drove this fight kind of sloppy, at least, because uh, basically Bloodsport got a very early shot on the wheel guards, or it's right there, which did a lot to Rotator's drive, actually. Bloodsport did a recap video which explains so much of this one, and they did a beautiful job doing it. It was a very useful and informative video on their strategy for this one, what happened during the match, actually, like what kind of damage did we see. But yeah, two things being, I I wonder why Rotator didn't try to use the plow more for this one, because like the idea of the plow is kind of to slow down the spinner of the other opponent, and we were seeing tons of weapon on, and we see he was going weapon on weapon for most of it, and And Bloodsport's reach just helped it win so much of that. And then the other thing is, like, some people were talking about why didn't Rotator put the horizontal spinner in the upper position, basically. Basically, it's unknown why they did that, but then Bloodsport did have a really good guess that they did it for reach purposes. They felt they might not be able to reach, like, the head of Bloodsport, like what Rotator was able to do against Ice Wave last season. Or not last season, but a few seasons
2018.
ago. So, yeah. So, basically with this, yeah, I think this one could have been driven a little bit better by Rotator, but I'm not sure if it really would have made much of a difference because it sounds like Rotator was just having drive issues just ever since they took that hit onto the side of the wheel. But including seems like there was a lot more going on, especially on the interior of the robot, because yeah, we saw Bloodsport shared some images in that recap video. There was a speed controller, or not a speed controller, receiver that blew up on the side of the robot, and I think it was entangling one of the wheels, maybe. But you have to check out that recap video for yourself. I'd highly recommend it because, like I said, Bloodsport did a great job talking about that fight. So as they usually do, including check out their April 1st video because that thing was so entertaining to watch. So checking out their really creative concepts for next season. So yeah, so really solid victory by Bloodsport. I think they're in a really good spot. Once again, Rotator's kind of in a bit of a hole right now, but I think Rotator's in if they win their next fight. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about their next matchups. We've already talked about Bloodsport and Beta. Let's talk about Rotator and Fusion. Both robots who are probably on the bubble for this one, with some pretty high quality matchups. And what are your thoughts on that one, Darren?
Ooh, this is gonna be a interesting match. Um, hmm. I think if I think Rotator will probably take it because they're just more versatile. I mean, in terms of like being both defensive and offensive, like can turn around. Like their front armor can function as a pretty good anti-horizontal plow, and they can put on the wedgelets on the back, so if they can change which end they face fusion with. It depends on if they like if fusion comes out at them with the vert, they can just turn and face the wedgelets towards them. But if they come with the horizontal, then they can just turn arounds. Also, Rotator is normally is pretty damn reliable when it comes to this sort of thing. They'll probably be able to outlast, I think, Fusion and wait for Fusion to kind of partially break down, as it kind of normally does and has been kind of doing all season. Well, most of the season. Yeah, it hasn't really. Fusion hasn't really been that reliable this season, even in the fight it won, and I think Rotator might just take this, unless Fusion somehow magically works and kicks Rotator's butt. I'm gonna say Rotator for now.
For sure. This is a tough one, I think. I'm very curious how Rotator is gonna plan for this fight exactly, because like if he went up against if Victor went up against a vertical spinner, go with the spinner on one side, wedgelets on the other. Went up against a horizontal spinner, we see a configuration like what we saw here. The problem is Fusion is both of those. So how is Rotator going to plan on preparing for that? I'm very curious as on how Victor is going to prepare for this fight with Fusion. And that's what makes me kind of think. I think Fusion kind of has a little bit of an advantage on this one, design-wise, with the fact that they have two massive weapons. And I think Victor can only really prepare well for one of them, unless if he's got some special configuration that's specifically designed for robots like Fusion, which he might. It wouldn't shock me if he does, but I would say Victor is kind of the better driver and the better tactician when it comes to when it comes to using multiple weapons. That's what I think Rotator's big advantage is. But I think but I'm going to go Fusion with this one on the fact that those two weapons right there like I worry that Rotator is gonna fall into a similar trap that many other robots have, like of basically like preparing well for one weapon, but then not so well for the other, which we've seen several robots fall into that trap. Like this season, last season, the first year Fusion was in. Uh, that's what worries me about Rotator in this one, and why I think I'm going to predict Fusion for this fight. But yeah, I think definitely the winner of that fight makes bracket. The losing robot might have a shot at it because I think both robots have shown a lot of potential to maybe make bracket like a low seed, or if they do last chance matches like what they did last season. Uh, we'll find out, but I think that's gonna be another fight I'm really looking forward to. That I think will be a banger showdown. So, uh, yeah, is there anything more you have to talk about for this matchup?
Oh.
The last thing I want to talk about here, Battlebots was hyping up the main event for next week, Sawblaze and Hydra. Who do you got for that one?
Um. Hmm. Hey, depends. Hmm. Hmm. Depends on really how well the bot is driven. Sawblades could take it if they're driven well enough, because all Sawblades need is really one hit, and then Hydra's probably done. Hydra could flip Sawblaze over and over, which will eventually probably maybe break something. I do not know. I do not know, man. That is a tough fight to call. They're both good drivers, so it's anyone's game really. For in that case, I can't really call it. I'm gonna say Sawblaze just because I like the green on it, and that's kind of all I'm basing my decision on.
Yeah, as for this one, that's a tough one to call. That's a matchup I'm really looking forward to, including it's a matchup I've been wanting ever since Hydra's rookie season in 2019. So I'm glad we're getting it. I think this one's going to come down to who drives the fight better and who has better ground game, at least. I think Jake's big strategy is avoid the hammer saw for sure. Just avoid getting scooped up in general. Because, like Derin said, I don't think they can take more than a few hammer saw shots from such a devastating robot like Sawblaze. But I predict we're going to see. I'm not sure if we'll see an aggressive strategy from Hydra like what we saw in the Rotator fight, or if we're going to see them do the sit and turn type strategy against Sawblaze. And because if I took a guess, I bet Hydra has the ground game advantage for this one, and that is why I'm actually going to go Hydra on this one. But that's the one that really could go either way, and I think that one's one of quite a few fights happening in the next episode that I think are going to have where I think it features two robots that are almost certainly going to make bracket. It's just basically the winner of the robot's going to have a higher seed when we get to tournament time. So, uh, yeah, I think that's going to be an awesome fight to see. I'm going to lean towards Hydra on that one, but it should be a good one. So, anything else really more to talk about this episode, or should we close out the podcast?
I can't think of anything else to say. I'm trying to think. I can't think if they did anything funny for like the mid-ad segments.
Not that I remember of, sadly.
Yeah, I remember either. Yeah, but this is a pretty good episode, so yeah, we could end it.
Yeah, I thought that was just a pretty solid episode too. Like I know there were a lot of people who have said comments and that this one was a disappointment. I didn't think it was that way. I thought we got to see some really solid fights in this episode and some yeah, we got to see some robots dig themselves out of a hole, some robots dig themselves further into a hole. But it was great regardless. So that'll do it for this podcast then. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe as usual. Check out Darren's channel, which will be linked down below, as well as Captain Mantine, even though he was only in here for a couple minutes. But be sure to subscribe to him as well. And check out some of his awesome fight videos since he competes out in competitions himself. So you've probably seen his robot a
Do
few
I?
times during this. So uh, yeah, absolutely
Do
check all
I?
that stuff out. So Yeah, and reply down below what your guess is for Sawblaze and Hydra. Not long after this, I'm going to be recording the prediction podcast for this week, so if you don't comment there, you'll for sure be able to comment in the prediction podcast. Lots of places for that. So, yeah, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.